What do you know is true without evidence? What are you certain of, right down to your bones, without proof? Back when I was 10 there was a competition for school kids to write a treatment for an episode of Doctor Who, with the best one being developed into an full episode in the next series and the winner receiving a writing credit. I was a huge fan of DW at the time and the competition was actually run through schools. So my teacher made the entire class do it. But I was very excited. I began writing a story about the Doctor landing on a planet full of defective Cybermen, whose programming had gone awry and had been left on this asylum planet to rot. The Doctor lands there in response to a mysterious distress call from a woman and attempts to find and save her while avoiding the dangerous dysfunctional Cybermen and the looming threat of planetary destruction at the hands of the normal Cybermen. I finished my short treatment and gave it to my teacher to submit. Unfortunately, it turned out the competition was very strict about the formatting of submissions and mine was returned because I had used the wrong formatting in some way. It seemed like a weird reason. I was a bit disappointed, and that was the end of that. But then, a year or two later, there was an episode of DW called Asylum of the Daleks, which seemed incredibly similar to my story except with Daleks. So incredibly, eerily similar in fact, that to this day I'm absolutely convinced that Stephen Moffat saw my script and came up with a formatting excuse so that he could remove me from the competition, steal my story, change the bad guys and claim it as his own. I have zero evidence. I don't even still have the treatment I wrote, or any letter from the BBC about my submission. And yet I know in my bones that Stephen Moffat stole his script from 10-year-old me. I believe you. Edit. Wow. This is my highest karma comment and my first award. Back when I was 18 I got my first tattoo. The Squaresoft logo on my upper arm. It was 2001, and I was also on my own in a new state. I was and still am a huge RPG fan and it's the height of my geekdom. Well, I sent in a picture of me and my tattoo with a short letter about me and my favorite games to official PlayStation magazine. They published my letter and photo along with the caption, "We don't know whether to be impressed or frightened." The very next month they started a tattoo of the month section and I'm absolutely sure 100% that I either started that or was the story that proved the concept, the test. Unless someone can come from that team's time and tell me I'm not, I'll always believe I was the start of that. Edit. Here link is a current pic of the tat. I looked for several hours to try and find the original that I sent in. I thought I had it saved, but I guess it's lost forever. Sorry everyone. As a member of the creative team, of which I'm not, I can tell you that you are 100% the inspiration. The Truman Show was made to make me think the entire world watching my every move was a ridiculous notion. But I know better. I remember watching the episode where you watch that movie. That my cousin stole my holographic first edition Charizard Pokemon card back in the early 2000s. I audibly gasped. That's like a cardinal sin. I know for certain that the comments on this post would look different on Facebook. My brother deleted my game save on purpose. He was old enough to read. He knew what he was doing. I did. Oh shit, something's about to go down. Let me get my popcorn. For every sock that goes missing a Tupperware lid appears. Edit. Thank you all for updates. That my last boss secretly hated me even though we had, on the surface, a very positive relationship. My boss acted like we were friendly and encouraged me to be open with her, and then I got fired out of nowhere. So, that was obviously an act. Edit. I get it y'all. Huge mistake on my own part to trust this person. Lesson duly learned. My ex-boss used COVID as an excuse to make me redundant because I was the only member of his team to be hired by someone else and not him. Duck that guy forever. Lots of companies are using COVID to get away with all kinds of shit right now. 100% we all lost our annual pay rises in April. Then in June, we're told it's the best quarter the company has ever had. We work in it. We got a temporary 7% salary cut so that they won't have to lay anyone off. I was alright with that. Then they laid people off anyways. Then they said it will probably last through December. Then I looked up the stock price. It's the highest it's been all year. It's 70 more per share than where we were last year. I'm not an economist, but duck them. Cassie Anthony killed her daughter and her parents know it too. Edit, thanks for the 2 rewards everyone. I've never gotten them before now. To me there's definitely evidence. But the justice system failed that poor baby. And to me, what's worse is last year she apparently said she wants another children. My cat knocked over the water glass on purpose. There's a travel agency that's been around in my town for as long as I can remember. I wholeheartedly believe it's a front for the mob. You better keep quiet or you'll be taking an unexpected trip. We'll send you on a nice, long vacation. We're all too in over our heads. This is truth, dude. This society is so fragile. We can't build even the simplest components we rely on. I'm a software engineer and I have no idea what's going on. Link. Reminds me of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, in which the main character gets stuck on a planet with Neanderthal-like people and needs to survive with them. He tells them about all of the amazing things from the future, but then he realizes he doesn't know how any of them work or how to make them, and decides to make sandwiches for all of the people. That a lot more famous actors than we realize are secretly the children of other famous actors from the previous generation. I call it the Hollywood bastard theory. A startling number of famous actors and musicians had rich or famous parents already connected in the industry. It seems the outsider making it big is more and more rare. If I'm stuck in traffic and switch lanes because the other lane looks like it will move faster, the lane I just switched from will automatically go faster. However, if you don't switch lanes, your lane will still go slow. So go ahead and switch lanes. Even though it doesn't change your commute time, it speeds it up for the rest of us. Getting a name tattooed on your body is a curse both on you and the person whose name is on you for as long as you wear it. Tell that to my father, who has his own nickname tattooed on his arm. I think he reversed the curse by doing that because of the amount of luck he's gotten in life. My cat is in a constant superposition of having recently eaten and being starved to death. At least, that's how she acts. Also, any of my feelings about myself can't contradict or disprove those, no matter how hard you try. Humans can communicate telepathically, we just don't know how to use it on purpose. That being sick with a bacterial infection as an infant and almost dying is the reason why I'm never sick despite being a super unhealthy person. Not that it is something I believe to be true, but something that I often think about is the butterfly effect. Like little things I do during the day could affect the total outcome of my day. I stopped for ice cream the other day on the drive home, and when we got back on the highway there had been a massive accident where the back of a red Porsche was just incinerated. Maybe we would have been hit if we hadn't gone to Dairy Queen. I don't know, man. If Final Destination taught me anything, death is pissed at you and is going to trick you into dying in a freak accident involving a nail gun and a tanning bed. I watched Flight 93 go down. I would never share that in real life because it's stuck in Guam and no one would believe you. The geography of the reports are off. I saw it clear as day from Kent State's main campus, Ohio. I didn't know what I was seeing other than I remember thinking, that plane is way too low. We had a aviation college, so planes were common and too big, and it's jerking around like how a toddler drives a Power Wheels truck. Continued on to class. You don't wanna be late even at a liberal college. The world is not ready for a bald messy pelado. That I have felt love. I'm really not sure if this is what others have felt and called love. But if it is not, I don't know what is. Burger King hash browns are just tater tots. Aren't McDonald's hash browns essentially big tater tots? Aren't all hash browns just tater tots? Edit, my highest upvoted comment is about potatoes. I think this says something about my life. 1 in every 3 or 4 people is not capable of critical thinking. And I'm not making some kind of point about politics or anything. I mean those people are literally incapable of taking in information and synthesizing it with other information and coming to their own conclusions. They're basically robots programmed by whatever source is most convincing to them. Gut bacterial imbalance can change a person fundamentally, physically, mentally, emotionally. One day they are going to cure some impossibly vexing diseases and conditions when they figure out that it's all connected to what lives in your guts. McDonald's Coke hits different than any Coke I've ever had. Edit, thanks for the awards, kind strangers. Let's get a Coke sometime. I saw a massive bee when I was younger, and when I tell someone they never believe me. Dogs go to doggy heaven. Consider this. Dogs go to regular heaven and wait for us to come up there. Most of this is just busy work. Currently sitting here taking help desk calls. Can confirm. There is no meaning to this. Cheers. I'll drink to that, bro. I'm really ducking lucky. But like in a subtle way, like if there's a 95% chance I'll get hurt doing something stupid, I'll come out unscathed. Sometimes I think there's a guardian angel watching over me, making sure I don't kill myself by being an idiot. As a nation, I can safely say without a doubt that you don't need cups to measure the water when cooking rice. Teddy Roosevelt cured his childhood asthma by sheer force of will. Don't a lot of people just kind of lose their asthma at some point? I'm quietly convinced I made a best-selling mystery novelist change the way he writes because I criticized him on Reddit. The novelist in question is Chris Carter. The books are the Robert Hunter Link series. Yes, the guy who has built a career on looking for serial killers is named Hunter. He works for the LAPD's ultra-violent crime unit. It's not a series that's overburdened by subtlety, is what I'm saying. They are as schlocky a bunch of thrillers as you could ever hope to find. But for some reason I can't get enough of them. Despite the fact that they're very much not great, they lean pretty damn heavy on ridiculous tropes. And I've never seen a more Mary Sue lead than I have in this series. But the biggest complaint I have with them is that the same line appears almost literally word for word in the first 9 books. I made a comment about it, link on Reddit on an Our Books thread about your favorite terrible authors. And I went back through all of the books published so far just to prove my point. The crucifix killer, the famous line, doesn't actually appear in this book as far as I could find. But Hunter does drink scotch near constantly as the defining trait of his character. Across the room a stylish glass bar looked totally out of place. It was the only piece of furniture Hunter had purchased brand new and from a trendy shop. It held several bottles of Hunter's biggest passion, single malt Scotch whiskey. The bottles were arranged in a peculiar way that only he understood. And so it begins. The executioner single malt Scotch whiskey was Hunter's biggest passion. But unlike most people, he knew how to appreciate it instead of simply getting drunk on it. Note that in this one and the next, Carter doesn't even use the Scottish spelling whiskey rather than whiskey. Despite the fact that this is literally Hunter's only character trait. The Night Stalker Hunter's biggest passion was single malt Scotch whiskey, but unlike most, he knew how to appreciate its flavor and quality instead of simply getting drunk on it. The Death Sculptor Hunter sat at the bar and ordered a double dose of 12-year-old Glendronach with 2 cubes of ice. Single malt Scotch whiskey was his biggest passion, and though he had overdone it a few times, he knew how to appreciate its flavor and quality instead of simply getting drunk on it. The Hunter's father had a passion for single malt Scotch whiskey, a passion that, frankly, Hunter had never understood. He found whiskey, any type of whiskey, way too overwhelming for his palate. I actually quite like this one. It's a prequel novella, so this one is a nice little meta throwback. It gets a pass from me. One by one, Hunter would never consider himself an expert, but he knew how to appreciate the flavor and robustness of single malts, instead of simply getting hammered on them. Though, sometimes, getting hammered worked just fine. This is also the first appearance of the "but sometimes getting drunk works just fine. Am I right?" addendum. It's nice to see Carter branching out a little, but after this, he never looks back. An Evil Mind single malt Scotch whiskey was Hunter's biggest passion. Unlike so many, he knew how to appreciate its palate instead of just getting drunk on it, though sometimes getting drunk worked just fine. I'm Death back in the living room, wrapped in a white towel. Hunter switched on a floor lamp and dimmed its intensity to medium. That done, he approached his drinks cabinet, which was small but held an impressive collection of single malt Scotch whiskey, which was probably his biggest passion. Though he had overdone it a few times, Hunter sure knew how to appreciate the flavor and quality of a good single malt. instead of simply getting drunk on it. The caller Hunter's biggest passion was single malt Scotch whiskey. Back in his apartment, tucked in a corner of his living room, an old-fashioned drinks cabinet held a small but impressive collection of single malts that would probably satisfy the palate of most connoisseurs. Hunter would never consider himself an expert on whiskey, but, unlike so many, he at least knew how to appreciate its flavor and quality, instead of simply getting drunk on it, though sometimes getting drunk worked just fine. The caller also gets double points for helpfully informing us that women just don't get the subtle nuances of Scotch. Hunter tried not to frown at her again, but he was sincerely intrigued. Women in general weren't very fond of Scotch whiskey, which wasn't at all surprising. Whiskey was undoubtedly an acquired taste, one that at first would certainly overpower anyone's palate and knock the air out of their lungs in the process. Hunter knew that only too well. The trick was to persist, to keep trying, to keep sipping it until one day it finally made sense. Women usually weren't that patient with drinks. They either liked it at first sip or they didn't. This, by the by, is how we know that the woman in question is trustworthy. Because reasons. Gallery of the Dead. Back in his apartment, Hunter had a small but impressive collection of Scotch that would probably satisfy the palate of most connoisseurs. He would never consider himself an expert, but unlike so many of his friends, who also claimed to enjoy single malt Scotch whiskey, he knew how to appreciate the flavors and robustness of the malts, instead of simply getting drunk on them, though sometimes getting drunk worked just fine. That post was made in January of 2019. In April, his book Hunting Evil came out, and the line was nowhere to be seen. I didn't think much of it until his new book, Written in Blood, came out a few days ago, and also didn't have the line in it. This comment is also one of the top answers if you Google his name and the book series via Reddit. Link exactly what you'd do if you were looking to see if people on the internet were talking about your books. I also can't find any evidence of anyone else pointing this out in a review or such like. Link. FXDI60AG multiply 80 UJMKT8GKBRP3 of a Q22 Chris Carter 22 plus Scotch 22 Robert Hunter 22 OC 22 Chris Carter 22 plus Scotch 22 Robert Hunter 22 GSLCP CGZWC390 WIKAZIXEK FADEB 4Y KAGIBIK REMGGI ORB 0 QHJIXEK FADEB 4Y KAGIBIK REMGGI ORB 0 QHJIXEK FADEB 46 BWG LADEB 46 BGG EBIK JOFXICO AE6 BAGI BVQ2 HD D50 AXA YAKAIK BR3C5 IBDE LJ SIAC GAK GAKDN 3 Milet 2L6W EBSK Lion SIAB VED 0 RUQJ High 642 DQRXCIVWKHRTXB0SQ4D UDKAZUACT 5. So yeah, in short, 3 months after I made that comment, he broke the habit of a decade of writing and finally decided that after 9 stories that use this as a crutch for Hunter's personality, it was too much. I know you're reading this, Chris. I know that Andy Dufresne was guilty in the Shawshank Redemption. It's never actually proven that he didn't kill his wife and her lover. We just have his word and a story made up by an inmate that wanted to be liked by Andy and his friends. Also, what are the chances that his wife and lover were murdered the same night that Andy was going to kill them himself before he changed his mind? That alien life forms will be nothing like we have ever imagined. Edit. This comment has gotten kind of popular. Thanks for all your comments. This had made me realize how little we truly know about the universe. A lot of the comments here have made me start googling new topics, and that has led me to a YouTube video that summarizes what I'm trying to say much more eloquently and intelligently. Link. Y'all. The question says without evidence. Life exists outside of Earth. I can't imagine a universe where we are the only life. My sister ate the whole ice cream box without asking my parents. Edit. I'm sorry to disappoint you guys, but she didn't leave any ice cream. I don't know what happened to the box. There is some Godzilla shit at the bottom of our oceans. Deep sea gigantism will not fail me.